The five of us just had such a wonderful circle, we've decided to cancel the rest of the program. Hi, I'm Don, and I'm so glad to welcome all of you. This has been an inspired idea from the moment that we conceived of doing something. I met Miyu when Ludi, hello Ludi, welcome Ludi, wonderful keyboard. When he and Miyu did a concert together, and Miyu and I visited afterward, and I told her that I do John Muir performances, and she said, oh, well, everything I do on the bowls is earth music. We should collaborate someday. Yay! So this is it. We've not done this before. We did have a rehearsal, and we thought, wow, this is beyond our wildest dreams of what a thoughtful spoken word mixed with the sound of these amazing crystal bowls was just something that we've never heard before. Has this ever been done before? Do you know?
Like the singing bowls?
With poetry?
No.
No. You're in a first. So we have a little tradition. I'm a retired United Methodist minister. I relate to this church, and there's a little tradition in our congregation. We'd like to invite you in. You don't have to stand, but would you, in the spirit of the Wild and Scenic Film Festival, come unity, would you just greet those in front, behind, and beside you, and just say hello in any way that's comfortable for you? Would you do that? We'll do the land acknowledgement. The land acknowledgement.
So everyone, hi everyone.
Not yet. So when we prayed together about when we would do this type of collaboration, and it occurred to me that it would be nice to see if the Wild and Scenic Film Festival would include it as a part of their program. So we went to meet with Livia Campos de Menezes. Is she here? Are you here, Livia? Thought she might be here. She was absolutely wonderful with us. She was very interested. We originally proposed that it be Miyu and John Muir. And we met with her again, and she said, well, I really love the idea, but you need to be well aware that since statues are being overturned, football teams are being renamed. John Muir, 2 years ago, by Carl Pope, wrote an incredibly important piece about John Muir's racism, both overt and covert. And she gave us resources to remind us of the disrespect he had for the Black people on his 1,000-mile walk from Indianapolis in Kentucky down to Florida. They reminded us that he did not want the native peoples that had been mercilessly murdered and driven out of the Sierras, and particularly Yosemite. He did not want them to have the right to return to their ancestral homeland. And he was unconscious of, as of course we all are, of our, and me as a white male, our white prejudice, our white privilege, and also the colonialism that uprooted and devastated so much of the world through the mandates, particularly the British mandate, that decimated and brought desolation to too many and so many indigenous peoples. So we were made, and thank you, Livia, for helping us to be more conscious and to be more understanding. I have two of the articles that she referred us to, and I would certainly recommend each of them to you. One is the original writing by Michael Brune on July 22nd of 2020. I'll have two copies, a copy of each. They're just table copies, but it's called Pulling Down Our Mountains, Our Monuments. And the other one is written in April 12th by a woman named Michelle Newhouse, and it's called Don't Cancel John Muir, but don't excuse him either. And so we ride this delicate balance of being involved in the colonialism, the outrageous massacre of the native peoples, and a sensitivity to what we need to be doing about. And I know the Circle, in their all of their publications and in their booklet, have a wonderful land acknowledgement for the area that is included in Circle's wide Yuba River area. But in respect to that, the John Muir that I wanted to tell you that he texted me earlier. He texted me to say that his self-driving Tesla could not find a charging station. Well, I didn't want to make light of that. But he will be here later. But in respect to being here today, Mia is going to read a land declaration that helps us to set ourselves on holy ground.
The space where we gather today is built on the land that for thousands of years was under the care of the Nisenan people, who originally and still do live here. We understand that Nisenan land was never ceded to them, and the original tribal families have yet to recover from the near genocide of their people. We acknowledge and remember that the Nisenan people are woven into the history and future of our community. Embracing the contributions of the indigenous people here, we stand beside them as we join in partnership to repair past harm, to move forward with awareness and respect, and support the continuing efforts for their federal recognition, sovereignty, and self-governance.
Thank you, Mia. I want to thank the Church and Society Committee of this United Methodist Church for officially sponsoring this event that made it possible for the Wild and Scenic Festival to be able to include it in their program without any extra cost or administrative work or insurance and all the other legal things that they have to provide for all the venues that they use for their film showings. So this special event is happily supported by the Methodist Church's Church and Society Committee, who does wonderful work locally and globally to work for earth justice, for all peoples, for all colors, for all nations, for especially working for the environment and global warming and sexual liberty and equality for all people. Our Church and Society Committee is very active in pursuing justice both locally and globally. So we thank the Church and Society for sponsoring our time. We also want to thank all that have volunteered to help. We have George Dean. I kid him, he's a very sound man. I told him he should amplify his work. I think we have Terry Boyer and maybe John Boyer doing videotaping up in the, did you say videotape? Is it videoing? Up in the balcony. We have a number of helpers, Barbara Dean, and our greeters. I think I had a list of the names of our greeters. We have Karen A and Karen B. And we have Brian Fry, and Barbara Dean is in charge of the kitchen along with Chelsea. And am I missing anyone else that has, Lynn Bagley, yeah, thank you. And we're really grateful for your help. I wanted to add, just before we begin, that Miro did have a change of heart and mind. Over the years, he had more and more contact. He didn't get to California until he was nearly 30 years old. And he had very limited contact with the native peoples prior to that, and they had been murdered, driven out. Chief Tenaya had been shot. He had contact with the remnant of what the white people had done with them. And same with, he had very little contact with Native Americans on his 1,000-mile journey from Indianapolis to Florida. So he had a very culturally limited view. But when he went to Alaska, in his 30 years of active travel, he went to Alaska 7 times, and each of those times, he was led by the native peoples of Alaska, and he was transformed. He would sit around the campfires in Alaska and hear their stories, hear their creation stories, learn their language, hear their chants, hear how they were deeply connected to the earth and their earth mothers and fathers and ancestors. And he began to write differently. He began to think differently. And that's an invitation for all of us, isn't it? That we are invited to think differently, to raise our awareness of how and in what ways we have been accustomed to such racist or ingrained limitations on our perspectives. So when John Muir says now I know all things are connected, he even quoted Shakespeare, one touch of nature makes the whole world kin. Now he knows that that includes human beings too. Amen? Do you do amens? Amen. So I'm going to turn this over now to Miyu, and she's going to just briefly introduce our poets and give you some practical information.
Thank you, Don. Welcome, everyone. My name is Miyu Tamamura, and Don and I, and all the poets and writers here, welcome all of you. We have been really excited when we got together for rehearsal. It was like a kindred spirit coming together. We laughed a lot, smiled a lot as we created this experience. And some of you have never maybe heard about this, heard about the crystal singing bowls, I want to tell you a little bit about them. I have 10 singing bowls here, and all I can say is that I'm just a shafer at this point for the bowls, because the bowls are the voice, vibration, and the energy of the earth. So I go where they want to go, and I just carry them and play them, and they are loved because of their beautiful sound, but their vibration unites us, grounds us, and reminds us of the connection of the earth that each of us have. And so I am really honored and happy to be here to share the sound of the bowls with you. And Dawn and I, when we got together, we thought about, wow, what the titles should be. We came up with different titles, but we settled as a sacred earth, because to me, the sound of the singing bowls really also connect us within ourselves with the sacredness. It grounds us and reminds us of where we come from. And with the writers and poets and their words, with the sound together, our intention is to remember and to care for this beautiful home, one planet that we live and we breathe together. So welcome. I'm so grateful that you're here, and welcome. And I would like to invite, actually introduce the poets and writers. Julie Carville, will you please stand and say hello? Yes, Julie Carville, yes. Yes. And Doc Duckler, Doc. And Guali Delgado. And Una Cobrin, she's a poet, and she was going to be here, but she has her grandson's wedding that she wanted to attend. So, but her spirit...
That wasn't a good excuse.
Her heart and spirit will be with us, and I will be reciting her poem that she really wanted to share with all of us. So I will be reciting her poem later. Okay? All right. So before we begin, just 3 things. If you have cell phone not turned off, this is a really good time to just turn off your cell phone. And we will not have intermission for our program. So if you would like to stand up and go use the restroom, there's one just outside of the door, and there's 2 down the stairs. So you're welcome to just exit and do that. Okay? All right. Okay. Any questions? You're all good? Okay. Okay. So I would like to invite all of you to arrive into this present moment. So I invite you to close your eyes. And breathe. Inhaling and exhaling. And arrive into this present moment. All you need is your breath, your heart, in this present moment in our program. And this is our invocation for today. May our words and sounds together open our hearts and beat with the rhythm of the earth. May our time and space together today be a gift to the earth.
hear these words by Edward Carpenter, born in 1833 in England, just 5 years before John Muir was born in Scotland. Carpenter was one of the earliest of the environmentalists and a part of the sexual revolution against the Victorian era, profoundly influenced and changed the culture toward the earth and her care. Only that people can thrive that loves its land and swears to make it beautiful. For the land is the foundation element of human life. And if the public relation to that is false, all else is of need false and inverted. How can a flower deny its own roots, or a tree the soil from which it springs? And how can a people stand firmly planted under the sun except as mediators between earth and heaven? To dedicate the gracious fruits of the ground to all divine uses. To render the life of the people clean and gracious, to make the wild places of the land sacred, sparing all living creatures as far as possible rather than destroying them. To do all this in singleness of heart, were indeed to open up riches for humankind, of which few dream.
I love wildflowers. Some of you know that. When I was a little girl, I used to play in a vacant lot near my home. And I especially loved to go into that lot when the yellow mustard flowers started blooming, because they covered the whole lot. And I would go into the lot and play, and then I would gather, unfortunately for the flowers, some of the petals of the mustard flowers, and I would squash them with a rock, because I wanted to pretend that I was making mustard. But I didn't know mustard came from the seeds. Years later, after moving to Tahoe, I could spend long, quiet, solitary hours by walking out my back door down through the woods and into a beautiful meadow. And being alone made all the difference, because I wasn't talking, I was quiet, and I was observing things. And this helped me to slow down and enjoy what was all around me. And that can be a challenge, can't it, in our busy, busy lives. Once, though, on an early morning walk, I was surprised to find something really special. I came upon a little group of yellow wildflowers. They were little monkey flowers. And they were blooming in this wet meadow, just blooming and blooming. Each flower, when I looked closer, had a tiny dewdrop clinging on its hairy leaves. When I knelt down and looked into that little dewdrop, I found that the sun had shone directly through the little dewdrop, and had formed a prism and created a little rainbow right inside each little dewdrop. Plants are a gift from the gods. We don't experience these gifts if we name a flower and just walk by it and think we now know it, that we now know it because we named it. Or has been said before, it is possible to know a flower, root its stem, and all the processes of growth, and yet have no appreciation of the flower, fresh bathed in heaven's dew. Plants and their wildflowers express the life force with such gentle grace as they joyfully appear each spring. They brighten the warming soils after the bitter cold of winter. And when sunny meadows bloom with the first purple violets and bright yellow buttercups, we know spring has arrived. As the days warm into summer, acres of wildflowers bloom in the meadows, showing off their beauty in a tapestry of color. On windy days, wildflowers dance in the wind, celebrating their flowery aliveness with vibrant colors of pink primroses, purple penstemons, and delicate white daisies. In fall, red fuchsias, blue gentians, and yellow rabbit brush end the season, sparkling like jewels on the steep talus slopes. What if the whole world was made up of only green and brown plants, without a touch of color anywhere? What a loss that would be. And it's mind-boggling to realize that plants have been evolving for 250 million years, while Homo sapiens evolved about 200,000 years ago. And it was the energy of the flowery pollen that gave rise to the development of warm-blooded animals by providing the energy that the animals needed to maintain the warmth in their bodies in the cold. Of course, without plants, as we know, life would not be as we know it. In fact, we wouldn't even be here. Plants and flowers are miracles who are just busy little beings as we are, who go about their daily life and their business of living just as we do. There's not really a big difference. We do different things, but we all live in the same way. When we take the time to slow down and stop, we aren't just looking at a flower. We're looking and seeing into it with our hearts. So when you are in a wild garden, leave the trail and wander off into a wild garden and find a special place where you can lie down and be alone, just with the flowers and with the bees and others who come to pollinate or eat the flowers. Allow your mind to quiet down into the beauty and the rich aliveness around you. Spend time with no agenda, lying in a luscious meadow of wildflowers, enjoying the blue sky overhead, the fragrance of the trees and the flowers, and the pleasure of a soft breeze caressing your face. When we are unhurried like this and curious about what surrounds us, we can see more and lose all sense of time as we sink into the sweet bliss of timelessness in the present moment. And now, I'd like to share a poem with you from a beloved poet, Mary Oliver. If I can get through it without crying, I'll work on that. It's called The Summer Day. Who made the world? Who made the swan and the black bear? Who made the grasshopper? This grasshopper, I mean, the one who has flung herself onto the grass, who's eating sugar out of my hand, who's moving her jaws back and forth, up instead of up and down, who is gazing around with her enormous and complicated eyes. Now she lifts her pale forearms and thoroughly washes her face. Now she snaps her wings open and floats away. I don't know exactly what a prayer is. I do know how to pay attention, how to fall down in the grass, how to kneel in the grass, how to be idle and blessed, how to stroll through fields, which I've been doing all day. Tell me, what else should I have done? And doesn't everything die at last and too soon? Tell me, what is it you plan to do with your one wild and precious life? Thank you.
In 1991, there was a cold snap that engulfed most of the West, and in Nevada City, the temperature got down to 5 degrees. And I'd only seen this once before in, I think it was 72. I had just built a little log cabin on Montezuma Ridge and had, no electricity, no insulation, and then, so I woke up one morning and it was in February, and I looked at the glass of water on my nightstand, and there was this thin layer of ice on it. I thought, wow, that's really cold. So then I went outside to the thermometer, and it said, it read 5 degrees, and then, so that's the coldest I've seen it. And in 1991, which is Cheryl and my first anniversary, we went up to Bassett's, and there was a bed and breakfast there, and then from there we drove and then skied into Gold Lake, which is a very popular summer recreation area. And so this is called Gold Lake Chickadees for Cheryl. We think they were chickadees, small, gray, black throats, flitting the tops of small pines. They sang squeaky songs over our heads as we skied the road in over a snowmobile trail. The lake was frozen shore to shore, flat white, ice age quiet. It had about 6 inches of snow on it. There was no ripples, no lapping upon the shore, no whitecaps, no fish flaps, no bugs in the air, no campers, no kids shrieking, no boats trolling, no ice fishermen hacking. A whole lake, silence but for a dozen small wind-shook chickadees following us around, happy to see people. Thus are we honored. This next poem is called, I Suppose If. I suppose if I needed extra muscles, I'd get myself a muscle car. I suppose if I needed credit, I would get myself a credit card. I suppose if I needed inane, constant, interruptive conversation, I'd get a cell phone. I suppose if I needed that holy grail of our age, information, I would get a computer and send emails, those crappy collision of cryptic phrases that massacre the language. Spam, I can get that from a can. And don't suppose just because you're online that you're off the hook. In the Old Testament book of Micah, the prophet asks, what is required of you? Seek justice, do kindness, and tread lightly upon the earth. That's all you need to know. And that's all you need to do. And good luck. Just a century ago, Ishi wandered into Oroville, the last member of his Yahi band. As a ward of UC Berkeley's anthropology department, his observation on Bay Area life was, white man clever, but not very wise. He thought the best inventions of the white man were glue and matches. Will Rogers said, what this country needs are dirtier fingernails and cleaner minds. Now, as a carpenter, dirty fingernails came with the work. But I suppose if I have to be honest, I'm hoping that a clearer mind, somehow equals a cleaner mind. And then I have one more short poem. This is called Nature. Mother Nature bats last. Mother Nature bats last. And she's at the plate. Thank you. And afterwards, there's a reception downstairs, so everybody can come down. There's refreshments and things down there.
After the rain, Una Cobran. If you stay dry and undercover, you'll miss the newly washed world outside. You can still catch remains of the potent draft, heavenly dew hanging in the air, too light to have fallen with the rain. And the wind's sweet breath is here too, come from many worlds away, muttering with a distant tongue, murmuring the finest fragments of the first words. Mingle with this good company, be doused clean with resurrected water, get baptized in this instant. Draw in the pristine air that has journeyed for countless years, being spun by the planets, pulled by comets, lit by stars, refashioned light. If you close your eyes, drink in slowly the lingering water, you might taste Jupiter. This is a poem I wrote on June 29th, 2020. It's called In Nature. Nothing to say, nothing to do. Skies are blue, mountains are breathing, clouds come and go, rivers are flowing. So much movement in harmony with stillness and grace. Closing my eyes, emptiness fills me in. Opening my eyes, beauty takes over me. Nothing to hold on to, nothing to be afraid of. On this earth, in its open arms, I feel invited to be free. May I be you just a little longer. The way you fill me in, to empty me, is how I learn what love is.
Narrow path, steep way. This time is full of all sorts of things, but I don't see many good ones. My eyes are looking far and deep. I can't help it. I know what I know. I see the direction we're headed. Along a wide road, an inevitable looking one, full of cars and malls, Disneyland and smartphones, violence and fear. Paved, as far as I can see, maybe to the moon, Mars, and beyond. And almost everyone wants the same thing: to be happy and comfortable, not to suffer loss, a good life, free of the blues, as much as we can be. And it's almost like there is no exit, except when we remember we have feet. And even though it's one way, you can walk over to the shoulder, leave the pavement and its noise behind, learn to walk along a new way, older than flesh and wood, as old as wind and water, narrow as a seed's sprout, steep as the dawn's breath. As spring follows winter, A feeling holds my heart, enfolds me in deep snow like winter in the Sierra. She beckons from the doorway of our cabin, light from window and door, promising golden warmth, if only I will come in. I first left this place in spring with no memory of winter, creeks full of song, land awake with first bloom, blue-gray peaks above the timberline, standing watch, beautifully thoughtless. As a hero, though I did nothing brave, simply being born, heroism enough. Visions came unbidden, elders past and future, present in awe-filled tenderness and silent compassion. Now I return broken and in need. I shall enter and rest, though spring may not follow these nights that are shortest, these nights that are longest. Perhaps the people will sing me back. Hey, jays, juncos, and woodpeckers. Hey, hawks, owls, and doves. Hey, humans, coyotes, puma. Hey, deer, bears, badgers. Hey, snakes, worms, beetles. Hey, trees, grasses, and fungi. Hey, rain, snow, and lightning. Hey, sun, moon, stars. Hey, all you people. Hey, from sleep, from dreams. Hey, whether you know or not. Hey, grandmother, teach us. Hey, grandfather, teach us. Teach us to sing. Sing a new beginning while the days are shortest.
lovely lady, what is your name, ma'am? Ah,
Hi, John.
hi, good evening. Oh, have you been out at night these last couple of nights? After the storms are passing now, and you see the stars out, so shining so bright. I mean, it reminded me of my father. He wanted to be a minister. He made me memorize the entire Bible. Well, I learned most of the Old Testament, but I learned the entire New Testament by heart. You know how we learned in those days now? You recite your lessons with your father, and if you miss a beat, you get a whipping. And you learn there's a very close connection between the mind and the body. I was thinking, the Lord has made the heavens and the earth, and the moon and the stars, the grandeur of the creation. When I consider the moon and the stars and all that you have made, what is man that thou art mindful of him, and the Son of Man that has made him so glorious? Well, I think the man has got a little tarnish on his crown, don't you think now? But I'll tell you, I heard this earth music. It just moved me so. And I got to thinking about how much I have learned since my youth. You know, I was born in Dunbar, Scotland. And my father, he came over to our studies one evening and he said, John and my brother David, he said, pack up your bags now, boys. We're going to America. I said, America? Well, you've been dreaming about America. Why, we had been reading Audubon's books on the birds of America. And we'd studied all about all the wild animals and the marvelous open spaces of America. And, you know, my brothers and I, we would go out into the wildlands around Dunbar. And you know, the word muir in the English now is the word for moor. And moor is like a boggy, uninhabited area. And so in Scotch, that becomes muir, uninhabited, what you might call a wilderness. And of course, John means gift of God, so my name ended up to be a gift of God wilderness, John Muir, right? Isn't that nice? I thought many times what I'd like to share with you today. When I first got off the ship in San Francisco, I had gone to Florida, I got malaria, almost died, and then I got a ship up from the Panama Isthmus to San Francisco. I met a guy in Chilworth. We got off the boat, thank God, and we walked through the streets of San Francisco, and the first guy I met had a tool belt around his waist, and I said, what is the quickest way to the wild? And he pointed me to Oakland. Still maybe kind of wild. We traveled on foot down to the Santa Clara Valley. Oh, I had never seen such beauty in all of my life. The blossoms, the cherry blossoms, the apricot blossoms, there was a sea of color. And we waded through it and we went down to the Chaco Pass. We camped out several nights, and when we got up to the crest of the Chaco Pass, and we looked out to the east to the Sierra Nevada. My friends, I've never seen anything like that in my life. It was like an ancient city set on a hill. It was lighted. It was illuminated, not from outside, but from within itself. The Grand Sierra was in between us was an entire valley, the Sacramento and San Joaquin valleys were a sea of gold. And we waded through waist-deep gold for several days until we could get into the foothills of the Yosemite. I was scarcely 30 years old, 29 years old. And we made our way into the park. It was Abraham Lincoln who, in 1864, had have set aside the Yosemite Valley and the Wawona Big Trees to protect them. That was the first federally protected land in our nation. But it was turned over to the state of California. Now there was a big mistake. But I remember going into Yosemite. And one of the things I remember is the sunrise. Oh, watching the day break and sunrise, the pale rose and purple sky changing softly to daffodil yellow and white. Sunbeams were pouring through the passes and over the peaks of the Yosemite domes, making their edges burn, while the silver fir in the middle ground catch the glow on their spiry tops. And then when we traversed down into the beautiful garden valley, the valley of Yosemite was dressed like a garden, sunny meadows here and there, and groves of pine and oak. And the river was flashing back the sunbeams. Oh, what a glorious note. Is it any wonder that the wild forests, the trees, the rivers, the bees were God's first animals? One day spent in the heart of the Sierra with my friends. Imagine that you are in the mountains. They are in us. They kindle our enthusiasm. They make every nerve quiver. They make every cell and core of us alive. Our bodies seem to be transparent to the beauty around us, like clear glass to light. I think once one has experienced the transformation of the nature of the beauty of the earth. Everybody needs beauty as well as bread. We need places regain my soul. How many of you have had a chance to walk in the sequoia woods? Could I see your hands? Is there any poor soul here who has never walked in the sequoia wood? You don't have to raise your hands. Walk the sequoia woods at any time of the year. And you will say they are the most beautiful and glorious on earth. Why, marvelous contrasts meet you everywhere. The color of sky and rock, light and shade, strength and frailty. You get a sense of endurance of the tree and the evanescence of the fragile animals and plants. Any fool, you know, can cut down a tree, and there are a lot of fools that cut down a lot of trees to build their infernal cities, their waterproof, you might say, the fence posts and their shiny docks and decks. In fact, I know that if the trees could walk and run, they would be hunted down for their bark hides and destroyed to build churches and cathedrals. Oh, my friends, there was no cathedral ever built by the hand of man than Yosemite Valley. I had the pleasure of meeting John and Elizabeth Bidwell in Chico one year, and they oriented me to the Upper Sacramento Valley. And on one of my saunterings up through the valley alone, I was rather weary, and as I got to the folds of the foothills, and I came around the bend in the Upper Sacramento Valley, I was stunned as I stopped and I saw Mount Shasta for the first time. Do you remember seeing her for the first time? I could scarcely believe my eyes. I was stunned at the beauty. And I realized that all my blood had turned to wine. And I've never been weary since. although a little intoxicated. But the beauty. As I mentioned, everybody needs beauty as well as bread. And God is ever more changing things, one beautiful thing into another way. He's constantly building up and breaking down, transforming everything in the world, in earth and nature, from one beautiful form into another. God does not create anything ugly. Ugliness does not agree and exist. Everything is beautiful so long as it is wild. Oh, I remember, my friends, feeling on one occasion after 10 years I had been in Yosemite wandering, those vast, calm, almost measureless mountain days, inciting us to work and rest. Days in whose light everything seemed equally divine, opening 1,000 windows to show us God. Oh, nevermore, however weary, should you faint by the way, who gains the blessings of one mountain day. Whatever your fate now, my friends, whether it's long life or short life, stormy or calm, you are rich forever. Well, we've had a lot of clouds in Nevada County recently now. I see clouds differently. I see clouds now as like plants growing up in the sky fields at the call of the sun. And when they grow in prime and beauty, then they scatter rain and hail like seeds and berries. And then they plant flowers and seeds underground. And so the clouds, they grow and prime in their beauty, and they distribute their rain and hail and snow, and then as they begin to fade and wither, and then they die. God is always changing one thing into one beautiful form, into another. And soon, we too will enter into that transition. We grow, we thrive, we spread, we begin to fade, and we die. into the beauty of the eternal. I was just thinking about the fact that most of you know the story of my climbing up in the middle of a raging storm into a clump of what I called cedar trees, or they were probably spruce trees. And a big storm, I clung to the top of the trees as the trees waved and rocked me for hours, and I clung to that little perch. And when the storm subsided, I came back down, and to the naked ear, the storm had stopped all the waving and the branches that had been swaying and swinging, almost like people at a revival. Then they began their quiet time, but inside, beyond the ear, you could tell they were still vibrating with the music of their inner life. All life has that vibration in them, where they are alive and they are singing their song, and they are always moving and chanting the music of the spheres. And I began to realize that all life is connected, that we are part of all life, that there is no man apart, no person apart from nature, that we are a part of nature, and that what we do to nature, we do to ourselves. So I would urge you, my friends, climb the mountains. Get their good tidings. Nature's peace will flow into you like sunshine flows into trees. Let the winds blow their freshness into you, and the storms their energy. And your cares will drop off like autumn leaves. Oh, I knew some years ago that as long as I lived, I would hear waterfalls and birds sing. I would interpret the rocks. I would learn the language of flood, fire, and avalanche. I would get acquainted with the wild gardens and the glaciers. And get to the heart of the world as I could. I think I did. I hope you can too. Well, I hear the mountains calling, so I must go. I must go to continue my studies, my work, that the earth might be transformed, so that love might abound, so that your lives might be enhanced. Don't forget, climb the mountains, get their good tidings. Let nature's peace flow into you as sunshine flows into trees. And your cares will drop off like autumn leaves. Oh, and I almost forgot. I only went out for a walk, and I concluded to stay until sundown, for I discovered that going out was really going in. Thank you very much. Good to be with you. Miu is going to lead us, if you need to leave, you're welcome. Miu is going to lead us in a short closing.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you so much.
So as a completion of our program, we would love to join our voices together and honor our times together as we Om together. And joining our voices together in this present moment is very powerful. And I will lead you to Om together. And before we Om and complete this program, let's close our eyes just for a last moment and come back to this present moment again. May our hearts remain open as our beautiful earth breathes through and with our hearts. May all beings everywhere honor the magnificence of our home, our sacred earth. Let's breathe in together and then breathe out. Let's breathe in one more time and then breathe out. Breathe in. Thank you so much, all.
Thank you all.
Thank
Just-
you.
One final word, Miyu, thank you. One thing I want to do is to invite those that are readers to exit right through here, and you can then greet them. You can come this way, or you can go back to the stairs that are at the bottom, at the back of the narthex. And I hope you will come down for just one personal favor. I missed the entry for my photo that I was going to send into the Wild and Scenic Festival. It is the epitome of the theme, Come Unity. And the title of the photograph is 24 Kids Coming into Unity with Nature. So if you do nothing but come down and look at my painting or my photograph, I would be really pleased. But they tell me there's lots of wonderful food and fellowship and time to greet our speakers. So thank you again. You are a blessing to us, and may the Spirit uphold you in all your endeavors for saving our precious and beautiful planet Earth. Thank you again so much.